The Watership Down podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down podcast episode 184, in which we will be looking at the second 10-minute segment of the third episode of the 2018 Netflix version of Watership Down. And this week, we make a welcome return to naming sections of this version of Watership Down after chapters from the book, as we more or less return to the original story structure. Anyway, let's journey back to Ephrathah. Netflix miniseries, Episode 3, Part 2. A New Journey. Part 2 of Episode 3, The Escape, runs from 9 minutes 25 to 20 minutes 25, and the reverse timings are 40 minutes 40 to 29 minutes 40. The equivalent chapters from the book are chapters 30, A New Journey, 32, Across the Iron Road, and 33, The Great River. The newly captured Clover has arrived at Ephrathah, escorted by Sergeant Sainfoin and his fellow Owsla member. He shoves her and tells her to move, then laughs quietly to himself. Arriving in an underground chamber, she is told to wait. Looking around nervously, she sees another rabbit lying on her side in apparent distress. It is Hyzenthlay. Clover goes to her and asks if she should tell someone. Her education on Ephrathah is about to begin, as Hyzenthla's response is sarcastic. When Clover says she has heard about this place and needs to find a rabbit called Hyzenthlay, the only response from the rabbit she is looking for is to ask Clover why she smells of fresh straw. When Clover explains that she was rescued from a hutch 2 days ago, the response is even more cynical and bitter, ending with saying that Clover seems so hopeful. Clover asks Hyzenthlay what is wrong with being hopeful. As Sainfoin leads her away, she tells Clover that she will find out soon enough. We are on open downland as the rabbits of Watership Down set off for Ephrathah, and a strange conversation takes place. Bigwig is arguing that he should be the one to infiltrate Ephrathah, but Hazel is arguing that it would be best if it was someone a bit less threatening who can pass themselves off as maybe a storyteller. What is the logic behind this? The best chance of infiltrating Ephrathah is to get a rabbit straight into their Owsla, and that rabbit is blatantly Bigwig, though you can kind of see why they might be nervous about this Bigwig being suitable with his temper. Blackberry agrees with Hazel, saying the role needs subtlety and cunning, which makes Bigwig confront them, saying they will see how subtle and cunning he can be when he gets out with a load of does. Blackberry sighs that there aren't many options. Both he and Bluebell will be recognised, and Hazel's injury makes him unsuitable. Hazel reacts defensively, which takes him further from the Hazel of the book. Nevertheless, Hazel tells Bigwig to infiltrate Ephrathah by pretending to be Achlesi, then contact Clover or Hyzenthlay and get their help to organise an escape tomorrow night. Hawkbit points out that the Ephrathans will be all over them as soon as they get out. How will they get away? They are interrupted by Kihar flying loudly overhead. Hazel says that's where their secret weapon comes in. Kihar dive bombs the rabbits and lands heavily nearby. He announces that no one commands the skies like him. At least that's what the Lady Gulls say. Hazel, after an awkward pause, outlines the plan to him. Kihar pauses to think and agrees to help, but on the condition that Bluebell has to make up an epic story about him saving them. Another awkward pause. Hazel turns to Bigwig and says the rest of them will wait for him underneath the Iron Road. He then calmly says, "Fox." This is an effective dramatic moment. We see what Hazel has just seen. A fox creeping towards them through the undergrowth. Just as Bigwig is asking what he means, he shouts the word again and tells everyone to get to the bushes. The fox is now rushing towards them. Bigwig stays behind and says he will handle this. He runs through a field of crops, closely pursued by the fox, reaching undergrowth on the other side. Nearby, an Ephrathan Y patrol led by Campion is crossing open ground and also enters undergrowth. Campion says there is movement ahead. This turns out to be Bigwig, who runs straight through the patrol, knocking Campion down and probably accidentally saving his life, rapidly followed by the fox, which promptly kills 2 rabbits. Bigwig makes good his escape. The Watership Down rabbits are wondering what has happened. Hazel tells Keehar to find Bigwig and escort him to as close to Ephrafa as possible. From above, we see them and Keehar separate. We are back in Ephrafa. Hyzenthley is in a brick-lined pit on her own. Then we hear Orcus's sadistic laugh. He sarcastically asks her if she is okay, and adds she must be wondering why she is still alive after being complicit in an escape, as well as the deaths of 2 guards and his brother. That last word is snarled viciously at her as he loses his cool. She comments that it couldn't happen to a nicer rabbit. Orcus moves past this and says that he wants her to act for him, to be a captain in all but name. Hyzenthley says she wants her to be a spy, but Orcus gives it the usual tyrant spin of this being a way to secure the safety of her friends and family. He then says he will give her what the subtitles call a brace of friths to think about it. I've absolutely no idea where they got that phrase from or what it actually means. How bizarre. He adds that she will be killed if she refuses, and orders her return to her old mark along with her friends. His final comment to Hyzenthley is something about wishing for the winds to stop blowing or steel yourself against them. More tyrant talk, basically. Back above ground, Hyzenthley is welcomed back to the right hind mark by Nettle. Sutphin asks her if she heard them singing for her. She says she did, but the singing must stop. It will just cause problems. Nettle says Hyzenthley is on borrowed time. They need to think of a way to escape. But Hyzenthley points out that Orcus is ahead of them all the time. They have no way of knowing how many spies he has, but he tries to recruit everyone. They are not to speak to anyone they do not know or trust. In a field nearby, Bigwig is briefing Keehar. In the distance, in this landscape that is far too open for the south of England, we see the bridge under the Iron Road. Bigwig tells Keehar that when he brings the does out of Ephrafa, Keehar must attack. Keehar, who for some bizarre reason is sitting on a garden tap placed in a crop field, hesitates and says, maybe. We are back to the unreliable Keehar of this version. When Bigwig asks him why maybe, Keehar says he fancies a trip to the big water and will be back tomorrow. Bigwig tells him he will be back tomorrow. Keehar agrees and starts flying off. As soon as he is off the ground, he starts to say maybe again. Bigwig, losing his cool, runs after him as Keehar continues winding him up with his maybe, maybe not monologue. Bigwig shouts after Keehar that he is a flying weasel, and suddenly he is at Ephrafa. The dead corn stalks in the field have disguised the 2 chimneys from us for a moment, but as soon as they are recognisable, an Ephrafa guard shouts for Bigwig to stop. He instantly has to change gear, and as they approach, he talks to himself about how he is just an easy-going rabbit looking for a new home and not to cause any problems. The guards tell Bigwig to go with them, but he immediately causes a problem by saying he isn't moving until he sees the chief rabbit. He is told no one sees the chief rabbit. Presumably, it is perfectly normal for a new arrival at a warren to do so, but this is Ephrafa. Elsewhere in Ephrafa, Clover is led to a group of does in an unsheltered patch of ground. It is a hot day. Naively, Clover asks their guard if they can move into shade. She is promptly hit hard to the ground. Sutphin tells Clover it was worth a try, but Hyzenthley cuts her off. Clover says she knows the rabbits from the other warren and names them, as well as making it clear she knows of Hyzenthley. She says they can trust her. Suddenly, all the owls are in panic. Woundwort is coming above ground. The owls form 2 lines of 4 on either side of one of the chimneys and stand to attention, all a little too human perhaps. Woundwort emerges, sniffs the air and looks right at Clover. To the nearest owsler he quietly says, "Bring her to my quarters." The rabbits of Watership Down are moving over open ground over which there is a light mist. We see dragonflies. Bluebell suggests that the Ephrafa patrols probably don't come out this far. Hazel agrees. They will wait here until the following night, when they will go to the Iron Road to meet with the escapees. As they move forward over this slightly wet landscape, Hazel starts to fall behind. Going back to him, Blackberry says there is no sign of Kihar. Hazel says as long as he is back when they need him. And then they spot something in the sky. Something red. It is a kite. A human-made kite. Moving forward over a rise, they reach the River Test, which is a fast-flowing large river here. And then Bluebell says there is something else they need to see. On the other side of the river lies a large human town. Comparison with the book. Clover's initial conversation with the far more embittered Heisensley has nothing to do with the original story, other than partly taking the place of Bigwig's early encounters with her and the other does. This Heisensley is broken but angry rather than docile, and there will be no sad poetry from her. The planning of the infiltration of Ephrafa takes place far more on the hoof here, without Bigwig already knowing what he will have to do. In fact, it isn't even definite yet that Bigwig will be chosen to enter Ephrafa. There is no time for the tale of Elachera and the Black Rabbit of Inlay, and Kihar is still not fully on board with the plan. In the book, things were far more in hand at this point, and secrecy within the group was a priority in case of capture. But I guess competence is boring for a modern audience, so here we are stuck with a Hazel who doesn't think ahead and a Kihar who might well decide to leave them. Orcus's conversation with Heisensley has nothing to do with the book, though his attempt to threaten her into becoming a spy would be something that would happen there. The sequence with the fox is effective, though in the book it does not directly threaten the Watership Down rabbits, though it is tracking them. The moment where Hazel suddenly quietly says fox is particularly effective, I thought. Bigwig, managing to arrive at Ephrafa while having a shouting match with an annoying seagull, is completely unrealistic. In the book, he allows himself to be picked up some way away. As for the River Test, it is a slow-flowing chalk stream, not the torrent portrayed here. And the town, which would be Overton, in reality lies about a mile to the east of where the rabbits arrive at the river, which runs through the middle of the town. In fact, episode 137, in which I visited Ephrafa, ends with me walking along that stretch of the Test towards Overton. And if you watch the video version of that episode on YouTube, you will see that the countryside there looks absolutely nothing like what we see here. I am going to be very picky about this part of the story, as it is one of those with which this version of Watership Down takes the most liberties. And trust me, this will get far worse. Next time, Thlalee tries to put an escape plan into effect.